Hello and welcome to the video. In this video I'd like to first look at this latest camera here from the guys at RunCam. This is something called the RunCam Swift Micro, and it's a very small version of their really nice Swift camera. Now, we've already had a smaller version of the Swift be available. This is the Swift Mini, which is a lot smaller than the standard HS 1177 style enclosure, but this is even smaller and more compact. So what I'd like to do with this video is show you how this comes in the box, how you set it up, what the options and features are, and then stick it on a model and take it flying and see how we do. Now, I've been looking for a really small camera to fit on one of the mini quads that we've been flying with iNav and been struggling, and actually that's why I got the Mini first of all, hoping that that would fit into the chassis. But the challenge that I've had is because there's so little room in this model. If I just kind of bring this model in, you can see the problem that I've had. That's the front of the model there, and that originally had only space for one of these style cameras, which to be honest is almost neither use nor ornament, particularly when you're used to flying with full-size cameras. Now, I was struggling to try and fit this camera in the front and also have these other LED bits and pieces as well. This is a 3D printable mount that I've created, but the cool thing is with this really small camera I've easily been able to create a little 3D mount that this little camera will fit in, even allow me to tilt it and to fit it inside like that. So this is a great camera for those applications where you just don't have an awful lot of space. But the thing that I'm interested in is how does this thing perform when you compare it to its bigger brothers. So let's very quickly have a look at the specs. So all the detail we're about to go through is actually available on the RunCam website itself, and if you scroll down in the main listing for the RunCam Micro Swift, then you'll find all of the specs. This is only, amazingly, about 5.6 grams, so for really weight-conscious applications, hopefully this is going to do the job. It is a little bit less robust than some of the other models that RunCam do, because you can see there's electronics exposed at the back, but this feels like an alloy piece, the little orange bit, and then we have the lens on the front. Come on camera, keep up. There we go. So the width of the lens is about 12 millimeters. It's a little smaller if I compare it with kind of the standard lens that they use on some of the other cameras. It's a very similar size, a little bit smaller. The reason it looks so different is this is a 160-degree lens and this isn't. So whereas with the normal Swifts that you can kind of choose the lens that you want. With this one at the moment it is fixed. It's only available with one lens option. And if I put the specs of this little guy up on the screen and compare it to its bigger brother, the RunCam Swift 2, which I'm a huge fan of actually. We fly a lot of the RunCam Swift 2s here and we really like them. The Swift Mini performs pretty much identically, and hopefully you can see that in the specs here. Pretty much everything is the same in terms of the options for the lenses, how it performs. The only difference is the Swift Mini is 12 grams versus the RunCam Swift 2's 14 grams, and it's a little bit smaller as well. So again, we're going from that standard HS 1177 style enclosure with the RunCam Swift 2 on the right hand side, down to a more compact enclosure with the Swift Mini, losing a couple of grams of weight as well. Still have that robust RunCam setup where it's kind of enclosed in an alloy chassis, and then what we're looking at here is the one on the left hand side, the RunCam Micro Swift. The only big differences here between this little guy and its bigger brothers is that the lens, as we've already talked about, is a 2.1mm lens, a field of view of about 160 degrees. Now we'll see how that actually works in practice when we take it out and fly. Everything else is the same, including the ability to have digital noise reduction and also the digital wide dynamic range, which I like turning on these RunCam cameras. It really helps on those bright sunny days where the overcast sky means that the ground is a lot darker. Only other two differences, of course, between this mini one and its bigger brothers is the fact it is so much smaller. So this one is only 5.6 grams compared to the 12 and 14 grams of the other two, and it's only 19 by 19 by 19 millimeters, as we've already said. So let me just show you how this little guy comes in the box. The first thing you notice when you get the box, I wasn't sure I'd actually been sent the right thing when I first looked at this, because if you compare this with a box that you get for something like, this is a RunCam, which one's this one? This is the Owl Plus, and this is the box for the RunCam Mini. You can see that the box itself is minuscule in comparison, and when you open it up, you have the little piece of card at the top. That actually sits on top of the camera when you open it up. On the back there is all the details about where to go to get your details and your manual, and also who to contact if you have any ideas or suggestions. Then you have the camera itself, which is just sat in the box like that. The only other things that you get in here, apart from the phone, is under this black piece there are a couple of cables and your mounting options. So let me just get these out, I'll show you what they look like. So you have the screws here to actually mount this thing, and then you get two cables. One, it's going to be fun for the camera, there we go. One of that style, and one where the ends are the same. Come on, camera. And the way it works is that the connector on the back of this is absolutely the same as the Fat Shark style cameras, so that's very easy to set up. So with both of these cables, you just pop them into the left hand side. On the left hand side we have the connections for the supply, ground and the video, and again this has a really wide voltage input. It'll work with anything from 5 to 36 volts, so you can run it off pretty much any main flight battery you want to do, and then you just plug the cable, one of the cables, into there, and you can plug it into your FPV transmitter. The thing that's missing out the box, and it does actually say this in the manual, is there is also the connector for the on-screen display. Now the on-screen display, to use this you actually need the special RunCam on-screen display cable, because it only has 2 pins on here. Now I'm going to have to get one of the OSD cables out of another box. I'll actually get it from this one here. This again is the little Night Eagle. Here we go. This is the thing that isn't supplied with this little guy, and it's the RunCam OSD that has, the camera's really struggling today, has the little 2-pin connectors. So what we'll do is, let me just plug this little guy in. Let me connect this up to some FPV equipment. We'll come back and we'll have a look at the kind of settings that you can access on this little guy. So, see you in a second. So I have the little camera plugged into a little FPV transmitter. So there we are, actually looking at the model. What I'm going to do though is just going to keep the lens cap on, because then you'll be able to see on this little screen what's actually happening. So to access the menu, we just need to click the button down once, and there is our on-screen display. So we can see we've got the camera title, we can set the exposure, the white balance, the backlight, whether it's not, it's day or night, adjust the image, and then go through everything else. So first of all, let's just check exposure. So we have shutter auto, brightness at 50, automatic gain control is high, wide dynamic range is on, fantastic, that's the way we like it. White balance is auto white balance, which is good. Backlight can be on or off, we're not bothered about that. Day or night is colour, that's probably setting the way that the thing handles when really low light conditions occur. We'll say we'll go for colour. Image adjust, if I click on that, we can see dynamic noise reduction, whether or not we're mirrored, the font colour on the screen, the sharpness, contrast, all that kind of stuff. We can set the language and all those pieces as well. So the way this is set up, I think would probably suit most people. I wouldn't really change many of the options in there at all, so the fact that this cable isn't included in the kit is probably not a showstopper. So now we've done that, let me pop it in the front of this little quad, and let's go and get out and fly and see what it's like in a real world situation. So here's an example video of what this thing is like to fly with. It's taken about 11 o'clock on a nice bright sunny May morning here in the UK. The sky has no clouds at all and the ground is in direct sunlight. So it's not a particularly challenging situation for this camera, but what I'm interested in is, does this perform similar to the other Swift cameras that I fly with, and also how does that 160-degree lens perform when it's out there on the field. Now, interestingly, watching this back, you will notice a little bit of fisheye, but it's only a little bit, and I've only noticed it now as I'm editing the video up, and I didn't notice it at all when I was flying. This is the DVR footage that was recorded on a Fat Shark Dominator V3 set of goggles, so some of the static and some of the aberration in the colour is due more, I think, to the DVR than to the actual image I was getting in the goggles. The way it's handling the saturation, the colour, the light conditions, the shadows is really, really good considering how small this camera is. And even flying directly towards the sun, although the sun is reasonably high in the sky, we're getting one of those kind of vertical lines across the image, but it's not blowing out the ground at all. We're getting a lovely picture. So this is a camera to consider if you are really short on space. The fact it fits into a cube of 19 by 19 by 19 millimeters means that we could probably get this into places where the other RunCam cameras couldn't. The Mini is that slightly smaller version, is fully compact, but this Micro is one that I will use on these smaller models where I'm really interested in either having a really small camera that performs well, or I'm really after something that's very lightweight. Do remember though that there isn't any enclosure on this camera. The electronics are uncovered at the back. So you probably want to think about how you mount it and make sure that if you are going to pop these on one of your models, then you have adequate protection in the event of a crash or coming down in something like wet grass. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video. We try and release at least 2 videos a week, usually a quick tip on a Tuesday and a more in-depth video on a Friday, and sometimes we manage to get a few more out as well. If you're interested in radio control, then the playlists are useful to have a look at. Anything that's called Introduction To is an organised set of videos that teach you from first principles about the subject that you're interested in. But we also have information about the majority of popular open source flight controllers, how to build quadcopters, fixed wing models, reviews, setups, unboxing, all kinds of things in here as well. So if you haven't already had a look at the playlist, then I'd recommend going and having a look through here to see if there's anything that takes your fancy. Finally, we do also provide updates through things like Twitter, Instagram, and also post all of our 3D designs on Thingiverse as well. So if you like what we're doing here on YouTube, have a look at those things and subscribe to us there, and you'll find out what we're up to in advance of the videos coming out here on the channel.